Okay, guys, good morning. Let's see who we have here. All right, hello, Danae and Andrea, Alexa and Monse. Good morning, ladies. Today we're going to go into our last unit. As you can tell, Unit 6 tackles something that we did take some time to look at before, and that's the conditional phrases. Now, back in January, we looked at third conditional, and I took the time to kind of look at all of the conditionals together. And in that time, we had given ourselves an opportunity to jump in and kind of reference the first conditional, which is called the present or future possibilities conditional, and the second conditional, which is the present or future unreal conditional. Both of these take advantage of a clause and result setup. And I had shared with you back then a nice little chart. Let me see if I can find it again. Dun, 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 dun. Here, a nice little chart that broke down all the conditionals. So we're going to spend some time looking at these too. When we use the present simple and results in the simple future, and when we use the past simple with results in the future, but that are unlikely. All right, so it's basically that, the difference between likely events and unlikely events. Now, let's start, of course, with some of the likely stuff. With the first conditional, there are definite patterns. You have a conditional clause, and in that conditional clause, you have the present simple. If you're going to start off with the conditional clause, if and the present simple, you're going to separate that clause by using a comma. And then your main clause or your result will be with a future imperative or a modal verb, which means you'll use will, you'll use should, you can use can, and you're going to use your verbs in their base form. Now, there's a reason why we are doing that. So let's dive into looking at the reasons behind it. Remember, all our conditional phrases will have a condition clause or the if clause and a resulting clause, which is the main clause. You can start with the if it rains, we'll stay home. Or you can start with the result. We'll stay home if it rains, right? Now, as you've been joining, please remember to put your full names and groups in the chat. And I'll go in alphabetical order as I see you guys in the list. So even though you just joined, Ana Laura, help us here with the first one. First condition.
Yes. In the first conditional, the verb in the if clause is present, and the verb in the main clause is future, will. If you don't go to sleep, you'll be very tired tomorrow.
Continue.
The if clause may have a present or future meaning, but the verb is always in the present, not future. If you will be a good boy tomorrow, mommy will buy you a present. If you are a good boy tomorrow, mommy will buy you a present.
All right, so notice here, even though the sentiment is the future, we won't use will or would or could or might or can with if. If is always going to be plus your verb forms, never with your modals. All right. Now you might change your modals in the resulting clause. So in the main clause, which is your results clause, you can also use may or might or can or must or should instead of will. And what it does, it changes the meaning. So remember, the future component of the result clause, it's because general, this is a likely situation. So how do I show how likely? Well, we adjust our modal. Will is the future simple. So it's a good way of showing the general likely future without any evidence. We might increase or decrease the probability with may or might. We can talk about our ability with can. We can also talk about our obligations with must, or our suggestions or recommendations with should. Now we might pull out the modal altogether and use an imperative form. Now imperatives are basically commands. So hey guys, if you arrive after midnight, ring me on my mobile. The door is going to be closed. The windows are going to be closed. So you need to get in, ring me. All right. So this is giving a command. Still talking about the future, but this time the result of your present action is the need for a more command driven type of activity in the future. Now, we can also use unless instead of if in our clauses. Now, remember when we were talking about different words? Here in the zero conditional, we can use when because this is a general truth and it's present plus present. For example, when you boil water to 100 degrees, you will get steam. It bubbles. Notice I can use when here. For the present plus future infinitive, I can switch out my if to unless. What am I doing? The goal here is to talk more about the condition, all right? So look at these negative examples. I won't go on holiday unless I save money. Unless I have enough money, I won't go to Acapulco. All right. Now, unless here kind of tightens more on my negative side because I am conditioning any action to this condition. So unless this condition is met, without this condition being true, this won't happen. Now, these are going to be matched with different types of future expressions. Now, as you work on your unit, you'll notice in this first one, just as before, you're going to have your reading, writing, listening, and speaking activities. Remember to complete all of those and then move on to your self-assessment. In those, you'll see opportunity to use your future clauses. These future clauses help to tie in the time some more. All right? You'll also be able to use conjunctions and connectors to be able to tie in your information. Now, the future clause is similar to what you do when you're in the first conditional. So you can take advantage of it in how you create your ideas, but not necessarily both of them at once. You can choose a future clause or you can choose your first conditional. Now, let's put it to work. What are some ways we can use the future conditional or the first conditional? Let's go with you again, Anna, to start, and we'll continue with the others. First one.
Yes. I will give you an answer when I have one.
Exactly. If I don't have the answer now, I can't. So I will when I do. All right. Uh, Good. Let's go with Anwar.
Yeah, teacher. I call you as soon as I call you as soon as I will arrive.
All right. Be careful. You're gonna have the will in the main or resulting clause, but not in the condition. All right. When I have one, as soon as I arrive, these are the conditions. The result will use will or other modals. Practice with me. I'll call you as soon as I arrive.
I I call you as soon as I arrive.
Good. You're going to take advantage of the present simple plus will and your verbs. Jennifer, number three.
Yes, when you read this email, I will be on a plane to Germany.
Good. All right. We replace our if with when, and we have our present simple, and the result after the comma is going to be will and our verb. Campus Luna.
Eh, Um, stay? Uh,
Stay, correct. All right, from the top.
I won't stay unless you stay.
Exactly. All right, conditioning my staying to your staying. Good. Number five, let's go with Donna.
Yes. If you don't find him, you
There we go.
mm, will call.
All right. All right, remember, be super careful with your choice of modals. For the first conditional, you can use will. You can also use can, may, might, should, must, or even an imperative. However, we won't use would. We're going to use would for the second conditional. It's more on the unreal side. All right? I can use should. If you don't find him, you should call. Repeat.
If you don't find him, you should call.
Good. All right. Let's continue with Carla Ruby.
Yes, he won't stop until he does get what he wants.
All right. While we do use does with the present simple, we generally use it when we're in negative sentences or in questions because we can already conjugate our verb with he, she, and it by adding an s. So until he gets what he wants, he won't stop. Or he won't stop until he gets what he wants. Again, Carla,
Yes, yes, sorry. Um, he won't stop until he gets what he wants.
with the first conditional, you're going to use will. Here we have will in the negative form and the present simple. All right. Next one. Danae. Are you there with us, Gutierrez?
Sí, sería, will you go if I have you the address?
Will you go if I give you the address? I will definitely go. I love parties. All right. Using will and the present simple. All right. Daniela.
Yes, if he knows that you are here, he. Mm.
Mm.
I don't know, but if he knows that you are here, he may try to contact you.
Correct. All right. Remember, you normally use will. That's the most common modal verb for the first conditional. You can also use may or might, should or can, and must. All right. Those are your friends that you can replace will with. All right. Number 9. Let's go with Paula.
When I am old enough, I'll travel around the world.
Correct. In your conditional clause, your if or when or unless, you're going to find the present simple. And the result will have something on the future or imperative side. Right? And Frida, you get the last one.
Yes, teacher. Uh, I will sort this problem once I will be back.
Same thing. You need the present simple plus will and your verb. This one, the difference is you start with your result. So that's why you don't have a comma, but you still will use the present simple in your conditional clause. Once I am back, I will sort this problem out. All right, so
Okay,
same
teacher.
idea. One more time, I'll sort this problem.
I'll sort this problem once I am back.
So this is what we use the first conditional for. Now, for the second conditional, we go a little bit deeper. It is still something of a future possibility, but it's now an unlikely future. Why? Because the conditions are generally not met. The condition is usually a wish or a dream. And therefore, here in the second conditional, we generally go with different conjunctions of our verb. We will still have the same rules. You need a if clause or a condition and a main clause, a result. However, the tenses will be different. All right, Anwar, read for us.
Sorry, teacher. Can you repeat, please?
Yes, can you read for us?
Yeah, thank you. We use if plus past tense to talk about imaginary present or future situation. Although the verb is in the past, the meaning is the present or future. We use will plus infinity to talk about the result or consequence of that imaginary situation.
For
If
example,
we had a mission of the country with God, their big weekend. Would you travel around the world if you won the lottery?
good. Now, here we're going to be using our commas just as we did with the first condition. The truth is still the same. If you start with your if clause or your condition, you separate it from the results with a comma. However, you don't need the comma if you start with the main clause first. If the result comes first, then you connect it directly with your resulting clause. If I won the lottery, I'd buy a mansion. I'd buy a mansion if I won the lottery. Now, unless can also be used here. Just as with the first conditional, we can use it to condition our results. However, remember these situations in the second conditionals our dreams and wishes. So the result is still unlikely. I wouldn't live in a big house unless I had a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, so I won't be living in a big house. Same is true. We're talking with the past simple, and our results will be would or would not plus our verb. And just as before, if I'm thinking about changing the meaning or the level of possibility in my result clause, I can change my modal. But in this case, you have a little less options. In your result clause, try to stay close to the unrealness of this particular type. So you can change would to could, just like a past version of can from the first, and might, which is like a past version of may, although might is much more flexible. What's the goal here? If I'm using would or could or might, I'm talking about how likely this would be the result of my dream. If there was a fire, it would be difficult to escape. If you were a bit taller, you could be a basketball player. You might save enough money if we both worked overtime. All of these are conditioned on things that are unreal. All of these are wishes. So the results are all wishes. Here in the second condition, since we're using the past simple, we need to remember that some of our verbs will be irregular. For example, the verb to be. In the past tense, for I and you and they, we generally go with one type of the verb. To make things easier, you can use were for both. But for written, I would go with were for the more clearer forms. And of course, were is not necessarily was, particularly if you're giving advice. If I were you, that's advice. All right, so generally go for were for all of your cases if it's advice. Generally, we use was for he, she, and it. We can definitely make some changes here in the second conditional with our use of were. Let's put it to work. For these sentences, just the same, think of your past simple in your if or condition clause and would plus your verb in your result clause. All right, this time I'm going to start with Andy Garcia, number one. Garcia Lopez, are you there? Andrea, are you with us? Let me double check the chat as well. And for those who joined late, don't forget full names and groups in the chat. All right, maybe Andrea is not with us. All right, while we figure out Andrea's situation, Annette, you want to try this one?
Yes, if give you her number, if I will have it.
All right, be careful. I already have would here in my result clause. I would give you if I had it. Past simple, wish or dream with would and your main verb in its base form. in the result. Right? Let's do that again. I'd give you her number if I had it.
If I give you her number if I have it.
But obviously you don't have it. You wish you did, but you don't. All right, number 2. Hugo.
Yes. If if I won the lottery, I think I uh, will give up my job.
Exactly. If plus past simple, would or would not, plus your verb. See, if I won a lottery, I think I wouldn't give up my job. Obviously, I'd do different things. I'd have more financial freedom, but I like my job, so I wouldn't give it up. All right? Ian, number 3.
Will 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 you date if you could date a name in the world?
Exactly. Your result clause with would and your main verb, and your if clause with the past simple. Now you might say, teacher, but you said no modals with if. Yes, but in this case, you're using the past of can. All right, so this is the past simple plus your would plus your verb. Who would you date if you could date anyone? I'd still date the person I'm with. All right, number 4. Let's go with Karina.
Yes. Uh, if everybody in the world donated, world donate on dollar, we'd finish the world problems.
You were right the first time. If plus the past simple. If everybody in the world donated $1, we'd finish the world's problem. Repeat.
Yes. Everybody in the world donate $1, we'd finish the world's problem.
All right, so if clause plus past simple, result clause, would, and the verb in the base form. Andrea, if your microphone works now, let us know and you can participate. I'll continue with number 5, Maria.
Yes. If you mm, were my wife, no.
Yes,
If
yes.
you were my wife, I would make you happiest woman on the earth.
All right. What did we say about was and were? Remember, guys, the verb to be is irregular. Right? So we have to remember it for its past simple form, was or were. So if you were, I would make. All right. Number 6, Alexa.
Yes. Um, I wouldn't worry about that if I were you.
Exactly. Good job, Alexa. Monse Gomez. Number 7.
If you told Grandpa the truth, he would. No. Um,
All right. You don't have would, but you have another option.
he will have. No, he
Mm,
might
he
have.
might. All right, one more time. If you told Grandpa the truth, he might have a heart attack.
If you told Grandpa the truth, he might have a heart attack.
Good. We can use would, might, and could. Those are our 3 options. All right. It's a mighty. Number 8.
Yes, I will call unless mm, I had a real emergency.
Correct. Would plus our verb in the result clause, but the condition is past simple. All right, number 9, Munoz Bautista, Daniela.
Yes. You didn't have to spend so much time tidying your house if you didn't have so much. I didn't see.
Wouldn't. One more time. All right, Daniela, remember
You
in
wouldn't have to spend so much time tidying your house if you didn't have so much stuff.
good. All right. So your result clause will have would or would not plus your verb, and your if clause will have the condition in its past simple. All right, Natalie, you get the last one.
Yes. I, wait, wait.
Mhm.
If you didn't make so much noise, I could concentrate.
All right. If you didn't make so much noise, past simple, I could concentrate. All right. Now, Val, I did not forget you. Let's do an example from over here. All right. Number 16, Val. And Andrea, if your microphone works, let us know. You can get an example as well. Hernandez, are you there with us, Valeria? Okay, looks like Valeria and Andrea are not here with us. All right. Now, guys, what's the big goal? In this unit, you want to make sure you are practicing the first and second conditional. We did the first and second conditional quickly when we were looking at the others in January. We're focusing on third conditional, but we practiced all of them just to be sure. And I wanted to make sure I took time to talk about block 5. All right. Now, in block 5, we were able to do unit 1 together, and then it had a forum. I think everyone got in and completed their forum. If you didn't, it's still open. Go get at least some of the points. By unit 2, we were on, well, I say we, kind of connecting myself with the student body, but there was a strike. So that affected our online lessons. I shared the content, and for those who did not complete their folders or forum, the forum is not necessary. What's necessary here is the exam. The exams for block 5 are still open. All right. These are going to stay open since the strike affected your online lessons. Go ahead and log in, and you can still do exam 1 and 2. In unit 3, we had a forum. So make sure you complete your content evidence folder with your reading, your writing, your speaking and listening and self-assessment activities. And if you hadn't done so already, in block 5, make sure you submit a forum for block 5, unit 3. I'll talk a little bit also about 4, 5, and 6 in next week's class, but this week I'm going to be checking these first 3 again, and you can do the exam from unit exam 1 and 2. Same thing for 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and the exam at the end. They are open, right? If you have questions, let me know. The deadline for block 5 is April 30th. Next week, we're going to dive in to working on the last piece of this unit. That's a reported speech. And at the end of this unit, we'll have an exam as well. All right, so make sure that you feel comfy. Now, next week, we'll have some breathing space. So take your time little by little to do what you can. And if you have questions, let me know. Send me a message so I can double check with you if you see things that are missing or you don't know how to check your scores, etc. In your units for this semester, if you missed an exam, I'll be looking out for some of you so that I can help you get those scores before the last session. All right. Now, by this last session, I want to have as much of all of your grades as possible. So I'm going to start telling you or searching for you if I notice that you missed an exam in block 6. The exams were 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and remember to do the exam before the deadline for 5 and 6. Now, 5 and 6 is not open yet. I'll let you guys know so you have more than enough time to do it before the deadline. See you next week when we tackle reported speech. Bye bye for now. Enjoy your weekend.